And last but not least, presentation. Very interesting one. A woman, a life, freedom. Lessons that Iran learned based on Polish solidarity. It will be delivered by the British activist and actress born in Iran, Nazanin Boniadi. The floor is yours.
I didn't understand that, but thank you for the warm welcome. It's good to be with you this evening, and thank you, Professor Monk, for your powerful words that remind us that we really have so much to learn from what we got right and what we got wrong. History keeps repeating itself, not because it must, but because we neglect its lessons. As we gather here today, the Middle East is once again ablaze. And I can't help but wonder how different our world could have been if we truly heeded the calls of Iran's democracy activists, who have risked everything for freedom. Not just in the last 2 years, but for more than 4 decades. Let me make something clear. The Islamic Republic is not Iran. The people of Iran largely detest the regime, which neither represents nor serves them. Instead, it prioritizes its hateful ideology, a revolutionary ideology, over Iran's national interests. Listen to their deafening chants. Death to their enemies echoes loudly, while long live Iran is nowhere to be heard. But today, we are not just here to mourn the Islamic Republic's devastating impact on Iran and the region. We gather to examine the implications of this authoritarian regime for global democracy, security, and human rights, and to draw lessons of Poland's own historic solidarity movement. Because woman, life, freedom represents far more than a plea for reform. It is a rallying cry for the eviction of a regime that has occupied Iran and held its people hostage for nearly half a century. We find ourselves at a pivotal moment. The Islamic Republic faces its most significant existential threat. No, not from external forces, but from within. An emboldened civil society, a fearless Gen Z, and most importantly, women, Iranian women, blazing the trail for freedom. This is a movement we cannot afford to ignore, and one the free world must actively support. You may ask, why is woman, life, freedom such a profound threat to the Islamic Republic? Because this movement attacks the very core of the regime's existence. The Islamic Republic is a gender apartheid state. It wages a war on women and girls to maintain control. The regime spends hundreds of millions of dollars annually and seeks to spend even more enforcing the hijab and restricting women's freedoms, all while the nation crumbles economically. But this is not just about hijab. Iranian women are among the few in the world who have fewer rights than their grandmothers did 50 years ago. Yet, it is these women who have risen fearlessly to lead these protests. The regime fears change, but it cannot stop it. 2 years ago, the world watched as more than 500 protesters were killed, 20,000 were arrested, and at least 10 have been executed so far after the murder in custody of Mahsa Jina Amini for inappropriate hijab. This brutal crackdown reminded the world that the Islamic Republic is incapable of reform. It knows only how to repress, deflect, and deny. The slogan, woman, life, freedom, doesn't merely challenge the regime's misogyny. It exposes the hollowness of the entire system. A regime that systematically denies the rights of half its population cannot credibly claim to be just, representative, or legitimate. The repression of women in Iran mirrors the repression of all Iranians. The regime's claims of moral, religious superiority are unraveling. Woman, life, freedom is the antidote to the regime's poisons, misogyny, murder, and repression. But like any antidote, its power lies in how it's used. The question before us is clear. How do we ensure that this cure for tyranny succeeds? Poland's solidarity movement offers a powerful blueprint for this resistance. Much like the Women, Life, Freedom movement, solidarity grew out of the grassroots rejection of an authoritarian regime that claimed to represent the people's interests while exploiting them. The Communist Party of Poland boasted of defending workers' rights, but Solidarity, an independent workers' union, revealed the state's lies. This created an ideological crisis for the regime, eventually contributing to its collapse. Iran's Woman, Life, Freedom movement has done something similar, exposing the Islamic Republic's systematic oppression, especially against women, by revealing the gap between the regime's self-righteous rhetoric and its brutal reality. It has ignited a profound moral and ideological crisis within the system. So what specific lessons can Iran learn and draw from the solidarity movement? First, unity and grassroots organization. Solidarity united workers, intellectuals, students, the Catholic Church, and even former Communist Party members. This diversity meant that the movement encompassed a wide range of viewpoints, from socialists to conservatives to liberals. Iran's movement must likewise unify women, students, laborers, ethnic minorities, and diverse ideological groups. A broad coalition will make it harder for the regime to divide and conquer, something it's very good at, a tactic authoritarian regimes rely on to stay in power. Secondly, nonviolent resistance. Solidarity's commitment to peaceful protest gained its international support. Iran's movement has also embraced nonviolence, and maintaining this approach will help it gain strength and legitimacy. Third, international solidarity and pressure. Poland's solidarity movement was bolstered by international support. Iran's movement must leverage the power of the Iranian diaspora and human rights organizations to build diplomatic and economic pressure on the regime. A unified opposition is crucial to convincing democratic nations to take the movement seriously. Fourth, persistence in the face of repression. Despite harsh crackdowns, solidarity persisted, adapting its strategies over time. Iran's movement must do the same, staying resilient and finding ways to continue challenging the regime through underground networks and ongoing resistance that keep the spirit of opposition alive. But why should the world care about the success of Iran's movement? The answer is simple. A democratic Iran would alter the balance of power in the Middle East. The Islamic Republic's destabilizing influence through proxy militias in Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Iraq, Yemen has fueled conflict across the region. A democratic government in Iran would weaken those proxies and contribute to greater stability. Iranians resent their resources being spent on regional militias. One of the most prominent chants in Iran's protests has been, "Not Gaza, not Lebanon, my life only for Iran." On a global scale, the fall of the Islamic Republic would weaken the global autocratic alliance that includes countries like Russia, Venezuela, and China. This could not only shift the balance of power in the Middle East, but also impact global issues such as nuclear non-proliferation and energy security. It could also advance women's rights across the Middle East. The liberation of Iranian women could inspire a domino effect for freedom and democracy across the region. History and scholarship show us a clear truth. When women lead, when civil society stands united, and when peaceful resistance is embraced, Regimes that seem unshakable can fall. Poland's solidarity movement showed us that authoritarian regimes can be toppled from within by the very people they claim to represent. Iran's movement stands at the same crossroads today, but it cannot succeed alone. So what can we do to help? First, we should immediately brand the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Notice it doesn't have the word Iran in there because it doesn't care about the Iranian people or the nation of Iran. We should brand it a terrorist organization and expel Islamic Republic agents. We must also go further by prosecuting perpetrators of atrocity crimes under universal jurisdiction, sending a clear message that they will not escape justice. Second, we can support Iranian civil society by creating a dedicated immigration stream that offers refuge to those fleeing persecution in Iran. Third, we can help provide internet access. This is much needed to Iranian dissidents during uprisings when the regime shuts down the internet to prevent them from organizing and documenting crimes online. Fourth, we can commit to identifying and countering the Islamic Republic's propaganda and influence that are designed to exploit our democratic processes, institutions, and media to suit their malign agenda and whitewash their crimes, yes, also here in Poland. Finally, Poland, with its vibrant women's rights movement in defense of bodily autonomy and record turnout of women in your latest elections, should champion the inclusion of gender apartheid in the Crimes Against Humanity Treaty. It's time to hold accountable perpetrators of severe, systemic, gender-based segregation and discrimination. Autocracies are united in their oppression and their objectives. Democracies must be equally united in their defense of freedom. We must increase the political cost of the Islamic Republic's oppression and aggression and tip the balance of power in favor of Iranian freedom seekers. To my fellow Iranian pro-democracy activists, as long as the regime is united and we are divided, they will remain in power. As historian Anne Applebaum wisely said, defending the democratic world requires a united front, a willingness to work together. Or in the words of imprisoned Iranian dissident, rap artist Tumaj Salehi, who is languishing in jail, if you and I become us, we are limitless. Thank you.
Nazanin Boniadi.
Nazanin Boniadi, thank you very much for your moving presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a short break, and at 8 p.m. You will hear the Ukrainian band Jagody, so please join us, and now we will have a short break. Thank you for your attention.
Jedzą kanapki z kawiorem.
Nadzwyczajna kasa.
Obrażanie dziennikarzy telewizji polskiej.
Chodzi o działania polityczne.
Przygotowanie ofiar dla pedofilów.
Für Deutschland.
TVP Info. Włącz się na nowo.
Radość, nadzieja, życie, wyzwanie, pasja, pamięć, zaufanie, pokój, jedność. Słowa tworzą świat. Polskie Radio. Źródło wiarygodnych informacji.
Plany biznesowe powstają z marzeń. Dlatego nie ma dwóch takich samych firm. Jedni chcą działać na całym świecie. Innym cały świat mieści się w dłoni. Sukces biznesu to nie tylko jego wielkość, ale też szczęście, jakie przynosi ludziom. PKO Bank Polski.
Uwielbiam szycie w sieci. Wczoraj podszyłem się pod wnuczka, wieczorem uszyłem intrygę na apce randkowej, a dziś planuję grubymi nićmi szyte oszustwo z promocją. Tak się szyje.
Na oszustów są sposoby. Zapoznaj się z poradami ekspertów na niedajsiepodszyć.pl.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Polskie Radio.
Jedynka.
Rodzina spółek Pelion to 12 tysięcy osób pracujących w ponad 300 spółkach w Polsce, Szwecji, Wielkiej Brytanii i na Litwie. Jesteśmy liderem w branży ochrony zdrowia. Od 1990 roku dbamy o długość i jakość życia. Pracować z nami możesz w jednym z 7 obszarów.
Dziś Nowy Jork, jutro Londyn. Za chwilę Paryż, Warszawa, Berlin. Na całym świecie kultura pulsuje rytmem. Wystarczy tylko włączyć dwójkę. Dwójka, Polskie Radio. Jesteś na miejscu.